Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Lauren, and today we are talking about what to do if you find that a client is coming to session and they just seem to be wanting to vent. They want to talk about their week, they want to talk about, situations or problems that are arising, but you're getting the sense that they don't really want to address goals, they don't really want to address problems that they're experiencing. They're just kind of staying in this place of venting. I have seen this come up before in my practice multiple times, and my thoughts are you've either seen it or you're going to see it because it's actually a relatively common experience when you're working as a therapist. And I recently saw a mental health professional talking about this very thing in a therapist group on social media. And they were genuinely confused on what to do, how to show up for the client, how to help support the client who seemed like they didn't really want to work on their goals and they were just genuinely unsure how to handle it. So we're going to get into all of that. I'm going to give you my take on it and let you know what I've done in the past. And my hope is that it's helpful for you when you encounter this in the future. As always, nothing that I say on my channel is in replacement for good clinical supervision or should constitute clinical advice. Always make sure you're talking to your clinical supervisor or seeking support from trusted professionals because you deserve to be supported. And it can be really challenging and lonely to try to navigate all of this on your own. Okay, so how do you even spot that this is happening? Let's talk about that first. Myself in particular, I have actually seen where I've noticed with certain clients in the past that I've worked with that we get to this place where it seems like that we are talking a lot about the same thing and sessions can start to feel kind of repetitive. Or they come into session and they talk about a lot of very minor things, things that were going on during the week, small things that came up, minor inconveniences, but we don't really get to the heart of what they're there for and the big stuff until right there at the very end. And so if you're noticing either of these things or both of these things happening, those both may clue you in that something may be happening here where they may be looking more to vent versus actually do some specific goal oriented work. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't help them. It doesn't mean that that's not helping move the work forward, but it can start to feel like, man, we're kind of stuck. We talk about the same things, or we address an issue, and I thought we addressed it last week or the previous session, and you're coming in today, and we're just kind of regurgitating the same thing. It doesn't really seem like anything stuck, or that you feel like that you have improved at all since I last saw you. And obviously, as therapists, we want to help people. And so if you notice that repetitively over, any period of time, that can start to clue you in as to, okay, am I helping them? How am I helping them? How is this supporting them? And that can be another kind of red flag as to are they strictly looking to vent? Is you yourself as the provider could be feeling like, okay, am I helpful? I'm starting to kind of doubt what we're doing. I'm doubting whether I'm being effective. And it does not mean that you're not being effective, but these are just little things to kind of clue you in on, hey, they may be really just kind of looking to vent. Another thing that may clue you in is if you're working with a client and the client says, this particular thing is really bothering me, and you go, okay, let's talk about how to address that. Maybe you give them some coping tools. Maybe you make a suggestion on, hey, have you tried this? Let's see if this would be helpful. And then they come in the next session and they have not tried it. They seem to, have not followed through with it. They seem to, be really kind of focused on the issue that they were talking about last time, not the results or the action that you were hoping that they would, try to help them out. If you're noticing where we talk about something, you seem to be kind of in agreement that this could be a good plan, and then you don't address it, you don't follow through, this could be another indication that there may be more of a desire to vent and less of a desire to actually follow through with the plans and do the work. Now, it's hard. Change is really, really hard. And so I want to keep that in perspective here because when a client just wants to vent, that's not a negative. And I've seen some people take that in a negative way, and I'm not sure why, because if they're coming to you and they're coming to session and they feel like that it's helpful and they spend that session talking about things, that's not a negative. That's not a bad thing. We have to talk about things in order to process things, in order to identify what needs to change, to work through things. And sometimes people are doing that for the very first time when they come to therapy. And so we have to be able to do that in order to then get to the, okay, so what do we do about this? And how can we help support you? So if you have a client that's just coming to vent, that's not a negative at all. And I want to make sure that that is clear, but it definitely can feel frustrating and can feel confusing of how do I move forward and what do I do next as a mental health professional or therapist trying to support them if we keep running into these roadblocks where it seems that we say we're going to work on something, we say we're going to follow through with this action plan, or you're going to try this coping tool, and then you come next week and you haven't tried it, and we're going, okay, okay, now what? So, all of these are little clues that should indicate to you, hey, something's going on here. I need to investigate further. I need to stay curious. I need to make sure that I'm staying empathetic and having a positive regard for this and really trying to better understand what is going on with the client that's causing them to show up this way and what is causing them to potentially not reach their goals, what is causing them to stay in this unhealthy cycle. Just stay curious. And I would actually ask the client those questions and try to get a better understanding of what is actually happening for them. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But these are the kind of the common things that I see pop up when someone may just be wanting to vent to kind of clue you in on, okay, something's going on here. Let's kind of investigate further. Now, how do we do that? How do we investigate further? So, if I notice that a client seems to be stuck or in this cycle where we're doing a lot of venting, we're doing a lot of talking, but we're not really focusing on how to manage those symptoms. We're not focusing on follow through. We're not focusing on what do you need right now and how can we help you meet your needs. We're just kind of staying stuck. Then I like to ask a couple of questions just to gain a better understanding of, is this what's actually happening? Do you just want to vent? Or is there another barrier happening that I'm not aware of that's keeping you from being able to follow through with things or to reach your goals or to, put that plan that you're talking about in motion? So I would ask the client specifically questions related to what you're picking up on. So if you notice that when you get to a part where you talk about how to help the client or what would be helpful for them, and they seem to kind of dodge that and they stay very, very stuck in just repeating the stressors, maybe they're talking about somebody else, someone else's behavior. I like to call that out and say, I hear that that behavior is really frustrating for you. And I'm wondering what about it for you feels difficult to navigate? What feels difficult to manage? And what would make the situation easier, better, less stressful, less frustrating, to really try to get them to identify what is it that would be helpful for them. And if they have a hard time answering that question, then I might say, maybe we should reflect on this and spend some time working on this specifically of what do you need? How do you know where your needs are? What is so activating or triggering for you in this moment so that we can then get you to that place of, okay, now I know what I need to do. Because sometimes as therapists, we can be really quick on the, okay, you should do this or you should try this, or I think this would be helpful to kind of manage your symptoms or problems. But the reality is that the person has to be willing, ready, and able to do exactly what we're hoping that they are going to be able to accomplish. And if they don't have all of those three things, then it's going to be really challenging. And there may become, obstacles that pop up where it seems that they're not really reaching their goals, but it's not because they don't want to reach their goals. It's not because they're coming to vent and it's a negative thing, but it's actually because they're struggling with these other key aspects that have to be in place. I'll give you an example. Sometimes what I find is that the barriers that people are experiencing are things like self limiting beliefs, negative self talk. People in their life are not supportive. They have their own unhealthy coping strategies that they are using in place. They're anxious, they're worried, they are depressed. There are other things going on that are barriers to them being able to get out of that venting cycle. And so, if that's going on, then actually, I want to see if I can help you address that piece first, because if there are barriers, we're not going to be able to get you out of this cycle until the barriers are addressed. The barriers are what are keeping you stuck. Now, all of those reasons that I just gave are very valid, understandable reasons as to why someone might be appearing that they are just coming to session to vent. Something else that I often see is that some clients, this is their first time in therapy and they genuinely don't know what to expect. And so, if we are not laying the groundwork of what this should look like, then it can quickly become this session where we're talking about a lot of things that maybe aren't pertinent to what we're talking about or your goals. And we're not really addressing the root of why you're here. And sometimes that's because the client has never been to therapy before or they have a skewed idea of what therapy is, and so they're not sure, what am I supposed to be talking about and what is relevant and helpful to the work and what is not, and what does my therapist want to know and what do they not want to know. It's also really common for people to want to fill the silence and to just talk. And so I'm sitting here, you may be the first person that is just giving me undivided attention in my life. And so I'm sitting here and I'm just talking freely. I don't want it to be quiet. I don't want the silence. It could be uncomfortable. And I also just really benefiting from you being here and you sitting here and just listening to me vent. Um, if that is happening, then it's not a negative. Again, it is, I'm actually helping fill a need, and I may not be aware of that need, but I'm actually being able to help fill a need. And so, if that is the case, then just being aware of that, I think, helps us to stay in a place of just warm, empathetic, positive regard, and better understanding of the client. Again, venting is not a negative and it can actually really be helpful. But sometimes clients generally, they don't know what therapy is supposed to look like. And so we may have to do kind of more guiding or redirection with some clients than others. And we should be doing that if we feel like things are getting way off topic. Because if we initially were talking about your anxiety and triggers, and now we've gotten way off track, we're talking about, whether your son is going to sign up for T-ball. Okay, I need to be the one as a therapist to go, okay, we need to like rope this back in because we're getting easily distracted. We're getting off topic. You're going on a tangent and that's not really relevant to why you're here. And I'm trying to be mindful of time and make sure we talk about everything that we want to talk about while we have the time before our time is up and I don't see you for another week. So if that's happening, we do need to lean into that and try to redirect to make sure that we are staying on topic, that things are staying relevant, and that we're able to help them reach their goals in the time that is allotted. Now, some clients just want to vent, and let's talk about that now because just wanting to vent is it's filling a need, like I said earlier, and something is happening in the moment where they're getting their needs met from you being able to vent. I mentioned a minute ago, sometimes we are the only person in our client's life who is able to be undistracted, completely biased, completely removed, giving them, our undivided attention. And that feels really good. And so if we don't have that in friends and family and people that we trust, it's very easy to look at that therapist and say, I'm able to kind of offload on you and I'm going to use this time to also vent and maybe talk about things that are frustrating or things that are upsetting me or things that I'm just really, really struggling with. Or maybe I am kind of talking a little bit about random things like the TV show that I was watching or my son's soccer game or what have you. None of this is bad. This is all because we are likely filling this need and we're being supportive and we're being empathetic to this person, which is a good thing. And this person is responding and saying, I just feel like I can share anything with you. Now, as therapists, if you are coming from a cognitive behavioral kind of lens, or you're looking to help make change, or we're looking at reducing symptoms, then it can feel very easy to get kind of stuck in that way of thinking of, yeah, but we've got to see results. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is a time and place for that. Absolutely. It's the way that I practice with a lot of my clients. And so I understand that that has a place. And some people are not ready to do that. And I said earlier, you have to be willing, able, ready to do the work. And if you're not, then you may just be in a place where you just really want to vent. And so if you have a client who's like, no, I genuinely just want to vent. I don't want to talk about how I can address this differently. I don't want to use those coping tools. I just want to vent because I am stuck on this. I am stuck on how annoyed I am, how frustrated I am, how this person did me wrong, or I'm just using this as an opportunity to really kind of offload on somebody because I don't have anybody to do that, in my life during the week. Then we address things a little bit differently. So as I mentioned, I saw a mental health therapist that was talking about this on social media, and there were a lot of comments about how people had different takes on what to do. I saw a lot of people say that they felt like that allowing somebody to vent had a purpose and there was still therapeutic work that could be done. And I saw some people saying that, if they were just venting, then they didn't really need to be in therapy, or they were not being, um, they were not utilizing the therapy as it was intended. And I have some thoughts on all of that because I genuinely believe that there is a time and place for venting and it can be really helpful and therapeutic. Again, I said earlier, sometimes people are processing things for the first time. This is the first time that they're getting things off their chest. They're trying to make sense of things. They're processing and feeling things. And this may be something very recent, or this could be something that happened in their childhood. And we want to make sure as mental health therapists that we're holding space for people to do just that because that is helpful. And they really can't get to addressing other issues, addressing how they're coping with that, how that is impacting relationships, how that is impacting their anxiety, if they don't have the time and space to just freely emote, express those emotions, talk about those feelings, go through those waves of I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, whatever it might be. And so I actually think that venting can be very therapeutic and still helps us move the work forward. I see that when we are trying to push past that and continue to try to push the work in a direction that the client doesn't want to go in or isn't willing or ready to go in, that actually be problematic. And so I don't think that we immediately need to go, oh, you just want to vent. This isn't helpful. So come back to therapy if you need something at some point. I don't think that that's good advice at all. In fact, what I would recommend is if you notice that a client is venting, I really would tune into that, be curious, like I said earlier, ask them some questions about that and clarify, do they still have the goals in mind that they want to work on? Or do they really just need to vent? Because if they really just need to vent, well, now I know that. And so let's talk a little bit about what that might look like, but let's also talk about how you can continue to not bottle things up or continue to get your needs met, get things out even when you don't see me, because I'm probably only seeing you for about an hour a week. And so that is a lot of time to not spend in therapy holding things in. So with clients that I have seen do this before, I have oftentimes encouraged them to kind of look at their social supports and make new social connections or to talk to their friends or family more, just so that they're not keeping things as bottled in and it doesn't feel like I've got like, I'm spewing word vomit on you when I see you because I have so much to tell you that's happened over the past week or two. I also encourage people in that moment to start journaling because journaling is a great place to help them do the same thing and continue to talk about things, to express things, to work through things, to acknowledge things, which is all really, really helpful. And then, of course, if they're like, okay, yeah, but I still just want to come here and this is what I want to talk about, then I say, okay, if that's helpful for you, as long as it's helpful for you, then okay. Now, I do think there's a time and place to step in and say, okay, we may need to reevaluate goals and make sure that we're both on the same page and that therapy is necessary and warranted because we do want to make sure that our therapeutic services are being helpful, that our goals are relevant to the work, that we are making sure that if goals or plans change, that we are addressing that and staying on the same page with them. And also, we want to make sure that we're encouraging clients to fly the nest, right? Like they want to address their concerns. They want to feel better. And so we want to encourage them to fly the nest. And so if you notice that this has become more venting and less really working on goals, or you just kind of feel stuck, then I might suggest, okay, so let's try some things of how to continue to emote and get these feelings out when you're not in therapy. And then also let's see, what does it look like if we met a little less frequently? Like, do you feel like that you could still maintain the progress that you've made if we checked in every other week instead of every week? And let's see how you do. And trying to evoke confidence in them of, hey, you've got this. Like you don't have to stay in therapy if you don't find it helpful anymore. You don't have to stay in therapy if you feel like that you've reached your goals. Like we this is an important place and I want you to come back whenever you feel like that you need to, and always let me know if something's going on. And also, I don't want you to be dependent on our relationship to the point where you feel like that you can't not see me every week or that you can't not be in therapy because something bad might happen, or then who would I talk to? These, I think, are red flags that we need to address in a very kind, compassionate manner, in a way that says, listen, I want to help you, but I want to make sure that we're looking at sustainable long term change. And you venting to me every week is fine. But if you feel like that you've reached your goals or that there are no goals in place and we've vented things, at some point we are going to exhaust that. And we're going to go, okay, now what? And so making sure that they have a plan in place of what that looks like is really important. Now, I want to be clear about something. We should not be spending the entire hour shooting the shit with the client. We should not be spending the whole hour talking about what's going on in Hollywood and just chit chatting like old friends. That is a massive waste of time. It's a massive waste of the client's money, and they could be doing that for free with their friends or family. And so we definitely don't want to go into that territory. And if we do go into that territory, then what I would suggest is making sure that we are really, really evaluating what the client's goals are, what are their thoughts about what therapy is supposed to look like, and what they're hoping to gain from this experience, and make sure that they really need the services that we are providing them. And if not, making sure that they have support in their life and encouraging them to utilize that support, which again is free and they can talk to them at any time. They don't need to come to session with us in order to just shoot the shit. But if someone is genuinely just wanting to vent and they really just need to vent, then my thought is let them. You don't have to do anything about that. Definitely check in and make sure that the goals are still the same, you guys are still on the same track, and that everything is still relevant and helpful. But if a client needs several sessions or several months to vent and work through things and process things, then that's what they need. And we, as a mental health professional, never know the true extent of the work that we're doing and what is helpful and what's going on with the client. And they can tell us, but we still don't know. And so I might walk away from that session going, was that helpful? Did we make any progress? And they could be walking away from it going, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I'm so glad I got off that off my chest. I feel validated. Like I feel like this was such a good hour. I can't wait to do that again next week. And if that's the case, then that's amazing. And you've done great work, even if you yourself are like, I don't know. And so, definitely soliciting the client's feedback of like, is this helpful? Like making sure things do stay helpful and relevant for them. But if a client needs time to vent and process things, then allowing them a space to do that is really the best approach. And staying empathetic, staying with a very positive, mindful, just presence for them, continuing to hold space for them, and just seeing where it goes. Again, I don't think we need to do anything immediately to intervene. I think we can just kind of see where it goes and the direction that they take it and reevaluate plans and objectives and things as time goes on. But we want to respect where the client is and not rush them to be somewhere else because, again, they've got to be willing, able, and ready to do the work. And if they're not, then they need this process first before they can get there. And this process still serves such a vital piece of the puzzle that is them figuring out how things are going to look differently for them and them getting to a place where they feel healthier and happier long term, not just for the short term of, okay, how can we feel better today, but making long term sustainable change. I'm genuinely curious what everyone's take on this is, and if you have tried anything in the past to make sure that you are staying helpful and supportive to clients who seem to just kind of want to vent. Make sure you leave those comments below. And as always, please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss anything because I always want to make sure that you are getting all the tips, tools, and honest conversations that you need so that you can continue to grow and thrive as mental health professionals. Alrighty, guys, until next time, bye.